Now I know I've already reviewed the Mercedes-Benz CLA EV, but I thought it might be a good idea to showcase the outgoing model versus the new model back to back in this comparison video. So if you're seriously considering one of these cars, then this video is for you to show you what the differences are. Let's get into it. Now the first thing to note is of course the exterior. At first glance they do look very much the same. However, this one, the previous generation, does have a lot more of a curvy stance to it. So even things like these lights here, they curve so much around to the side of the car. Even on the side as well, what Mercedes often call the character line. You'll notice down the side of the handles here, it's just so curvy. Compare that with the new CLA, the lights are a bit different, I'll touch on those in a second, but then look, there is a very definitive line going down the side of the car here. This of course just adds to the sportiness sometimes, but there again, some people might still prefer the curvier look of this car, but there's a few differences on the shapework of the bodywork. The grills are of course completely different as well. So on the outgoing model, you'll notice that the diamond grille, or what Mercedes used to call, are completely coated in Mercedes-Benz stars. Very similar to my own car actually. I drive a Mercedes-Benz A-Class, so very, very similar. However, you go to the new one, on certain specifications, all those stars are completely illuminated. And speaking of Mercedes-Benz stars, of course I mentioned the lights. Look at the differences with the lights here. These are of course a lot more curvy, have this like swooping line, but then Mercedes have gone for the Mercedes star in the front lights. And that's not the only place there's a Mercedes-Benz star on the new one. So yes, move to the rear. Of course that curviness is still very much present on this one, and it is a little bit on this with the way the lights go around to the side, but the rear light design is completely different on this because it features the Mercedes logo in the actual lights, and of course they do have a traditional light bar that goes across the back of the car as well. But ultimately both cars still do have that curvier shape, but there is a difference in the name. So yes, this is called the CLA Coupe, but the new one is called the CLA Saloon, so slight difference in the naming on that one. At number 2 is the interior design. So this one is the outgoing model, so it has two 10.25-inch screens, very similar to, again, my car, so I'm very, very familiar with this layout. Couple of notes, it has physical buttons for the climate control, touch buttons for the steering wheel, which is very, very similar to the new CLA. And then when it comes to the quality of materials in here, of course, this is Articoat man-made leather, what Mercedes calls. So yes, man-made leather. Unless you're a leather expert, in my opinion, it's very, very similar. But they have upped the build quality on the new one, which was nice to see. Now this one is similar with a slight improvement on the middle screen. So on the driver's instrument cluster is also 10.25 inches, so exactly the same. Similar steering wheel, although I'll touch on a little bit more about that in a minute. But the central screen, yes, this is larger. It is 14 inches now, with an optional passenger screen as well, which is also 14 inches. So yes, you can kit out the new CLA with a total of 3 screens on the inside now. One thing to note is that the climate control is now all touch, so all on the screen, as is like the controls on the steering wheel, so no physical buttons for the climate control, so just worth noting. But I mentioned there was a load of improvements on the quality on the inside, and yes, virtually everywhere you touch there is leather or of some description of like a softer material, even down on the doors here as well. So that was a huge improvement, and rightly so, because obviously this being an electric car, it needs to be quiet on the inside, and I remember reviewing it a few weeks ago. It was pretty good. Now when it comes to standard equipment on the previous CLA, of course it was very good for its time, and things like reversing camera or parking sensors or the Hey Mercedes voice assistant, or even the 2 screens on the inside or an automatic gearbox, all of that stuff was standard, which of course was great. But all that stuff has of course transferred to the new one, but the new one has even more. Now when it comes to the new CLA specification, there's now a panoramic roof as standard, and it's not just like a small roof, it's a huge panoramic sunroof on the inside. There's now a larger screen on the inside, so from 10.25 inches now to 14 inches. And speaking of the screens, the sat-nav is now included for 7 years, which I'm assuming is like live traffic for 7 years. Previously it was only 3 years, and there's even a selfie and video camera on the inside in case you want to take selfies while you're on the road. Might have to try that out somewhere. All in all, the specification list for this new car is quite extensive, but fun fact, of course the one I have here isn't a standard specification. If you did want to see a standard CLA, I have actually reviewed one, and that was a few weeks ago, so I will link that on the pop-up banner up above, and I'll put it in the description down below, so that is worth a watch, which also does include a drive on UK roads as well. Now, of course, next on this list are dimensions. Now, as always with most new cars, they are slightly bigger, but here's the differences. The outgoing model is 4672, 1999 and 1430. The new one, 4723, 2021 and height 1469. So yes, new cars always are slightly bigger, but for reference, it's not as big as you think. If you take your Mercedes key and look at the very, very bottom of the key and go up to pretty much where the badge just starts, that there is how much bigger the new one is in total on the length side anyway, the largest of the dimensions. So it's not that much bigger. Now when it comes to price, the previous one was around about 33,000, but the new one, the EV, starts at 45,615, and the petrol version, yes, the pricing has literally just been announced. This starts from 38,700. So yes, it's a little bit more, but there is a lot more tech and of course standard specification in here. And the good news story is, of course, it is under £40,000, which means you don't have to pay that horrible car tax in the UK called the premium car tax, which just makes it that much more expensive. So yes, it starts from under 40,000 for the petrol version. Now for this CLA, the previous one, there were 1.3 litre petrols, 2 litre diesels, a plug-in hybrid, and some Mercedes AMG engines as well, which are CLA 35 and a CLA 45S. This new one actually offers 1.5 litre petrol engines across the whole board, with one of them being 4MATIC. These are almost like a self-regenerative hybrid, so I guess like a bit like a mild hybrid version 2, so it can actually enable all-electric driving apparently, although it's not out yet, so I haven't actually driven it, so I can't confirm how it works, although I would like to try it, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out. What I have driven though is the EV version, so like this one here, and yes, the range on it does go up to 484 miles and actually allows you to drive for about 6 to 7 hours. And I know what some of you are about to say right now. WLTP, that's what's quoted. You'll never get that in the real world. Well, those 6 to 7 hours that I quoted just a second ago have already factored in that calculation. Yes, you could drive from here to north of the Lake District, which is actually 6 hours and 27 minutes, 364 miles. So even that, if it achieved that on its own, that's really, really impressive. I mean, at that sort of time frame, 6 to 7 hours, I'm gonna need a toilet stop. So it's got some serious range. Now, if you're interested in comparing the boot capacities, it's 440 litres to around about 445 litres, depends on the engine you go for in here. Let's take a look at the new one. Now, interestingly, on the new CLA, the boot is actually slightly smaller, so this is 405 litres. I'd imagine this is probably in part due to the larger battery, which of course is underneath the car, and maybe for the hybrid system, which is found in the petrol version. But yes, even though the new CLA has a slightly smaller boot, it also does have a frunk, providing you go for the EV version, because obviously if you have an engine, there'll be an engine in here instead. But this is 101 litres if you go for the EV version, plenty big enough for a hold-all bag or something like that. Now, interestingly, when it comes to the steering wheel's had a slight change as well, only very, very slightly though. So it's more to do with the button placements, and also the starting procedure has also changed. So for the buttons, cruise control is now on the left-hand side, and some of the buttons have also been simplified as well. Over here on the right-hand side is how you answer a phone call now, and the volume is also on the right-hand side now. Traditionally, it was on the left, so they basically swapped sides. And the starting procedure is also different. You now start and stop it using the traditional gear stick up here, so there is no start-stop dedicated button in the car now. So one slight change on there, although I don't know what that's like for the petrol version. For the multimedia system, it's also had an upgrade as well. So the previous CLA was Generation 2 MBUX, whereas this one is now Gen 4, and it actually has a chip architecture of MBOS. In English, basically it's a lot faster, has a game engine in it just to make all the graphics as fluid as possible. I do actually have a dedicated video on the different comparisons of MBUX, because there are 4 in total, so I will link that up above if you want to find out more about what this can do. So there we go then guys, that concludes this week's video. Let me know your thoughts down below. Will you be buying one of these two? Let me know in the comments. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Huge shout out to these guys, Sandown Mercedes, as they help provide these two so I could actually make this video for you. So thank you so much. Until next time, see you then.